Call to order the regular meeting of Building Board of Appeals for the City of Ann Arbor for Thursday, May 18th, 2017. Have roll call, please.
Chair Ken Winters,
Here.
Robert Hart,
Here.
Paul Darling, absent, Gordon Berry,
Here.
Hugh Flack Jr.,
Here.
David Arnsdorf.
Here.
Roll call is complete.
Can we have either introduction or just state who is present from the city staff?
Present from the city staff is building official, Mr. Glenn Dempsey, plumbing inspector, Ryan Miller, city attorney, Kristen Larkham, city fire inspector, Jeff Pelzer, and assistant building official, Peter Pace.
Thank you. The agenda was given out to board members and staff. Is there any comments on that? If not, we could have approval to move forward with the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed. Agenda is approved. Approval of minutes for a previous meeting in January of 2017.
I move to approve. Second.
Motion and second for approval of January 17 minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed. January 17, 2017 minutes have been approved. Next would be public commentary, general. Is anybody here for that? Next would be appeals, actions, and show cause hearing.
Are you asking if I'm present? My name is Pete Wood.
Considering what? I'm sorry.
I didn't hear what you stated.
I was asking about public commentary.
I'm sorry.
There's no one here for public commentary, okay? Next would be appeals, actions, and show cause hearing. BBA 17-002, Reuter MD appeal hearing. Can we have a description of what this is concerning from staff, please?
Okay, this is appeal hearing for the BBA 17-002 for 3186 Oakwood Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan 48104. Parcel identification number 0912-02-314002. Today is May 18th, 2017. I'd like to go through some description and discussion on staff report, and because of there are several items here, or there are 4 items here that are going to be addressed, I'd like to go through one item at a time and allow Mr. Wood to present his side so as not to get them all mixed up and construed. So,
That'll be good, yes.
Reuter MD Plumbing LLC, address is 31675 West 8 Mile Road in Livonia, Michigan, 48152. A summary of his appeal is, the first one would be, applicant states that the MLK Technologies LLC performance liner lateral lining system be allowed to be, or for use as it is adopted by the Michigan Plumbing Code 2012, Section 102.8, and reference codes and standards in Chapter 14, reference standards. Moving on the response, staff response to this. The applicant has stated that the LMK product is approved through the Plumbing Code and reference codes and standards. On the contrary, Section 102.8, the Michigan Plumbing Code, And I might add that I've included more than the code sections, as Mr. Wood has referenced, and they're very similar in nature, but I've included also the residential code. This is a residential code, or a residential home, as opposed to a commercial building, but we'll have both of them, which you've seen in your packet. So I would include both those, and I'll go through it as such. On the contrary, Section 102.8, Michigan Plumbing Code, and R 102.4, the Michigan Residential Code, will allow the codes and standards to be used in Chapter 14, MPC, or Chapter 44, MRC, but are further regulated by Section 102.8.1 and 102.8.2, Michigan Plumbing Code, and 102.41 and 102.42, Section 102.81 and 102.82 MPC, and the R 102.41 and R 102.42. Basically, what this is stating, it indicates that the codes will supersede the codes and standards when there are conflicts. And further summarizing that interpretation by this department, the product as referenced by MD Reuter has been met to meet some codes and standards. However, when you go to those code sections, the codes and standards are approved, but when they're in conflict with the building or residential code, they do not apply. The code takes precedent. And if you go to the sections in both the residential or the plumbing code, the sewer pipe allowed shows the descriptions and the standards that are being met, and certain items are listed there. His standard and item is not listed there, so it's not an approved product. Continuing on, and that's the materials allowed to be used for the sewer pipe in Section 702.3 MPC. The building sewer pipe and the building sewer pipe shall conform to one of the standards listed in Table 702.3. And that's where you find the allowed use of this material for those types of installations. And P3002.2 in the MRC, the building sewer. Building sewer piping shall be shown in the table, P3002.2. The forced main sewer piping shall conform to one of the standards for the ABS plastic pipe, copper allied tubing, PVC, plastic pipe or pressure-rated pipe indicated in P3002.2. Both tables, the residential code and the plumbing code, show various products with approved standards. But Table 702.3 and Table P3002.2 do not include the ASTM designation F1216-03, nor does it include the NSF ANSI 14 as provided by the applicant. So those tables do not show this product being allowed to be used. Thus, the code will take precedence as the LMK product and above standards as provided by the applicant are not listed in the tables and not an approved product for the sewer pipe. You have your attachments in there that have been listed, 1, 2, and 2A. The other information to take in consideration with this product that is for appeal here, in the Public Act, it clearly indicates through the second part of B, the condition for justifying the variance from the code to allow the use of an LMK technology lateral lining system shall be neither so general nor recurrent in nature as to make an amendment of the code with respect to the condition reasonably practical or desirable. This request does not meet the condition B as required per the standards approval, Public Act 230, Section 125.15, Section 115 point, and should be denied. A second item here is a desired product that does not meet the code requirements. So if it does not meet the table and is allowed by code, which oversees or supersedes the standards. There's another way that you can get an approval, and that's by submitting it to the state of Michigan. So a desired product that does not meet the code requirements can be submitted to the state of Michigan and may receive a certificate of acceptability. The product that is approved from the state may have conditions as part of that approval. We have 4 similar products that have been approved in accordance with Act 230 of 1972. You can see our attachments number 3. LMK Technologies LLC Performance Lateral Lining System is not one of them. So there are other products out there that are maybe considered similar, but they haven't gone through the right process for approval. Is one last statement here. Peter J. Wood has applied for and received a certificate of approval from the state of Michigan for a similar product. You see in attachment number 4. So he understands the process and requirements to get an alternative method or material approved by the state of Michigan. It's called a certificate of acceptability in accordance with Section 21 of the Public Act of 230 of 1972. There is information there on the 230 Act of 1972, which I'm sure you've all had a chance to read. In conclusion, with this first request of this appeal, the pipe is not allowed without a change in the code or an approval from the state of Michigan. So
Okay,
with that,
that
think
takes
would
care
be
of number 1.
that's our
First
longest
thing?
one. Do we want to talk about number 1 then now and then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good.
Mr. Wood, do you want to say something about your product?
Before
And
we
the-
do
and
that,
the-
I would like to ask some questions about this board. I'm reading Building Board of Appeals. Is this a construction board of appeals?
It is a construction board of appeals.
Yes, it is, and at this time, this is an appeal for you to present your case.
Okay, so this is a construction board of appeals. Is that correct?
That's what I said.
Okay, and on this roll call of the last minutes, which one of these people are on the Construction Board of Appeals?
Sir, the purpose of this hearing is for you to make your case here. That is all that this is for.
Okay, I do have the right to know who's on the Board of Construction Appeals, don't I?
You took roll
This
call
did
vote.
go through the roll call. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members of the Building Board of Appeals.
Okay, you said Building Board. I want to make sure this is Construction Board of Appeals.
It's the Ann Arbor Building Board of Appeals.
Yes,
They're one and the same?
yes.
Okay. Okay. With that, you're asking me if I wanted to make a comment about my product. Before I
About
do,
this is your time to present your case for the first item that was just discussed.
okay, do I have the right to the documents that you submitted that I haven't seen?
He has a copy.
The copies are right there, yep. Yes, sir.
They're in here?
Did he have those beforehand?
Yeah, the first half is all his application.
I haven't seen any documents. This is the first that I've known that there's other documents beside mine. So, that complicates it for me because I don't have a clue what you were stating.
Do you wish to have the meeting delayed for a month until you can go through the paperwork?
That might be a possibility, but for right now, I would like to proceed.
And proceed.
I would like to ask that you asked about or you mentioned a table. Is there a copy of that in this?
That's in the Michigan Residential Building Code.
I understand that. Is there a copy in here?
I believe so.
So,
For both the plumbing code and the residential code.
are you saying that lining is not a permissible application in the city of Ann Arbor for a building sewer?
Excuse me. This is the time, and it's been stated before, for you to present your case that was given by Mr. Dempsey.
So Mr. Dempsey is stating that there is a table in the plumbing code that states what is allowed to be used on a building sewer. And I'm asking a question.
It is not, this is not the point to ask a question. You have to present your case from what Mr. Dempsey was saying.
Okay, so Mr. Dempsey's talking out of two sides of his mouth. He's telling you, by going to a table, that cured-in-place pipelining is not an approved process. I have been putting cured-in-place pipelining systems in building sewers in the city of Ann Arbor for many years. And he has been issuing, or the building department has been issuing me permits to do that
With this same product?
with this same product. So the plumbing code states in section 15, which is a reference guide, and I gave you copies of the NSF information. I gave you copies of the American Society of Testing Materials and their information. I have been putting liners in the state, this particular liner in the state of Michigan and many different communities. I could name them all, but I wasn't prepared to do that. But this liner is approved by the state plumbing code, and
Mr. Wood, how is that approved by the state plumbing code?
it is, I was getting to that. It's in reference 15, and it's under the NSF information. So if you,
It's page 36.
the product meets the NSF 14. It's stated in section 303.3 of the Michigan Code. The plumbing product is third-party certified, and NSF is a very reputable certification company. The supplier has that certification approval, and it's stated and approved in the reference under the state plumbing code. And in conversations with the state plumbing inspector, I would be allowed to use this product in any state building. So 303.4 of the code states that if there's an issue, you would go to a third-party certification, and it would have to be a reputable certification agency. Are you telling me that NSF is not reputable?
I did not say that.
Have you issued me multiple
excuse me,
permits?
You can state that you feel NSF is a reputable, not questioning Mr. Dempsey as to, does he say it's not reputable? You're presenting your case.
Okay, I apologize because I've never done this before, so this is a new process for me.
Okay. At this point, you're presenting your case. Simply agree or disagree with Mr. Dempsey's statements,
Okay,
and tell us why you
okay.
disagree.
So should I repeat myself again? First of all, I apologize if I've offended you. I believe this is an approved process. I've had the confirmation with the state plumbing inspector that it would be approved in any state building. I've used it in dozens of communities from all over the Metro Detroit area. I have been using it for years. It has a reference to an NSF third-party certification, and it's listed in the plumbing code in reference in the appendix. I'll give it to you exactly. In the back of the plumbing code, if you're not familiar with it, there is a reference guide, and it's an index that gives you third-party certifications that are approved in the state of Michigan, and that is one reason why there's never been a state approval necessary, because there's never been an issue until it was brought to my attention through Ryan Miller. So at this point, I'm using the appendix of the state plumbing guide, and it's in there, so. I believe it's chapter 15 of the book, so.
When you say it's in there, do you mean this product by name is listed?
This product is listed under the standard. It's an NSF standard, which is in the plumbing code book, and it's referenced as NSF standard 14-2008E, and it's the title is Plastic Piping Systems, Components, and Related Materials, and then it gives references in code and sections number, which is 303.3, 611.3, and it's approved. There's
But is this product listed by name? Are you referring to by name, or is it saying in general plastic liners?
If you look at the standard, which I gave you a copy of, the NSF certification, it's listed, that listing is what's in the code book.
Okay.
Okay, is that all that you have on the first item that Mr. Dempsey?
The table that he referred to has no lining product mentioned. That table would be generally used if a plumbing contractor was going to put in a new construction project, and that would be the piping that the plumbing inspector would approve. What I am doing is a restoration process by sleeving an existing sewer, and my product is approved through a different section of the code under the NSF standard. So if we go back to what I stated, I don't know if you wrote that down, but in section 303.3 of the 2015 Michigan Plumbing Code, NSF 14, it meets that standard. The code talks about the product is being third-party certified under 303.4, and NSF is a very reputable company. In fact, they're here in Ann Arbor. So I forget why he said there was a conflict, but I don't see it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I recount?
Go ahead.
So there are many standards out there. All standards don't apply to everything that's happening in construction. these standards indicate they've been approved, they've been looked at by third parties. In the plumbing code, it indicates the standards that they accept on that table. Now, it doesn't mean that the product may not be used in the future, but currently it's not been put into the code book. And if you go to the administration part, where it talks about the allowance, the code takes precedent over codes and standards, so that chart or table should take precedent. Now, with that being said, there is a vehicle that this individual can take for the approval. See, I have not approved the product, and I do not feel comfortable with the product, not that it isn't a good product, but this would be taken to the way to do it, and there's been other products, which even this individual has used, the Permaliner system. The vehicle, to get this approved, would to take it to the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan would review this product and all the third-party paperwork, and if acceptable, they would recommend it to the Construction Code Commission, and they would be the ones to approve it. Then the state of Michigan would create an acceptability of product certification. They would indicate that it's approved, which it isn't currently, and they would indicate what needs to happen if you install this type of system. So there is a vehicle that this individual can go to see if he can get that approved. But, and he's aware of this process, but he hasn't done it with this product.
So can I ask a question? So there are similar systems that have been specifically approved?
Attachment.
When I say similar systems, there's liners, CIPP liners that are approved, but they're all different types of products.
Okay.
They're made differently.
But those cured-in-place pipes are specifically approved?
We have a Permaliner, which this individual's used in the past, that has an approval from one of the past directors of the Bureau of Construction Codes, Henry Green, that approved it and said you can use it with these conditions.
There's a copy of that attachment 3.
Okay.
It's in your packet.
All right,
Can I add to this?
this will be the last merry-go-round here on the first item, yes.
Okay. I have been an LMK-approved installer for approximately 15 years. I have been putting liners in Ann Arbor for approximately 15 years. Why have they issued me permits for almost 15 years, and all of a sudden, we have hit a wall? When my product has a third-party certification through NSF and is approved in the state plumbing code and can be used in state buildings like Michigan State, Michigan U of M, we have put liners in all of those buildings.
All right, thank you. Mr. Dempsey, did you want to go on to number 2 then?
Yes, we can move on to 2.
Actually,
Is there other questions?
I do have, I'd like to just take this from a slightly different perspective. Did he pull a permit for this work?
Yes.
So he pulled a permit. He indicated what product he was planning to use.
Actually, the procedure on this particular job was I received a complaint that they were out doing work. So I went to the job site. That's where I met up with his employees. We discussed the procedure.
Is this relevant to the code?
It's relevant to the chronology of things, because from the way the packet was presented, it sounded as if you had pulled a permit, and then something got stopped at a certain point while you were doing the installation. But it sounds as if you went ahead without a permit, were found out, as it were, and then a permit was issued?
Yes. Then, after some discussion, Glenn and I met with Mr. Wood out on the job site, and that's where Mr. Wood informed us of the LMK product. Prior to that, we believed he was using the Permaliner system, which we did have a state approval for.
You believe he was using that?
Correct. That
Was
was,
that stated by him in any paperwork,
yes,
that he was using the permaliner?
correct.
And that is
Not
approved by
this
the...
job.
Not on this job, but on a couple years prior, he provided us with the documentation that it was the Permaliner.
That's not a true statement. You said it was a couple of years earlier. It's not.
Okay.
I guess the question is, who provided this Permaliner acceptability to us? That would be the main question. And I think, was that you, Mr. Wood, that provided it to us?
The Permaliner,
The acceptability sheet made us
yes,
aware of
that
this.
was recently, within the last few months.
So I'm not following this completely. You started the work, you then had to go through pulling a permit. The assumption was that you were using a liner product that had a certificate of acceptability in the state of Michigan, but you in fact weren't using that product? Is that what we're,
Let's,
What the deal is here?
if I may, I am here not for a variance on Oakwood. The only form I could find to fill out was the Building Board of Appeals. I was looking for a Construction Board of Appeals to dispute the way my code is being interpreted, or the state code is being interpreted in the lining process. We hit a wall on the Oakwood job because a permit wasn't pulled prior to the install of the liner. There's reason for that, but I don't need to give it to you. It was just something that happened. It wasn't, every project we do, we pull permits for. And it was in our contract. So we did pull the permit, and the job was inspected and not improved because they said it wasn't a state-approved product. And then I gave them the Permaliner information, and then I told them that I like to use LMK because it's a better product because of the NSF and the ASTM and the installation guide and all of that I submitted. And that's the product I've been using mainly for 15 years. There are multiple types of liners. There's liners that are inverted with air pressure. There's liners that are pulled in. There's liners that we use different manufacturers based on the project. So the one Oakwood was an LMK liner, I believe, and Permaliner in 2015, I was denied a final on a project in June, and I was sent a letter from the building department, and I was forced to renew 32 permits that went back to 2010 that they thought were all liners that they weren't. And then I pulled, against the statute of limitations, I paid for 32 permits, $35, just so I could keep working in the city. That liner was a Permaliner. They didn't want that liner installed for some reason, and I put it in. In December, I got that letter. That liner had been in for 6 months. There was never a problem with it. But now I was shut down again in 16, and now in 17, I've hit a wall again, and that's why we're here. I've not tried to do anything without doing anything proper. I followed all the protocols. I plan to follow all the protocols. So I'm not a fly-by-night contractor. I'm here to restore sewer systems in Ann Arbor.
Except for the fact that you put in LMK product without the product being approved.
That's not a true statement. It is approved.
That's what I,
It's approved by the state. It's in the state plumbing code. I just gave you the reference to it.
is this approved by the state plumbing code?
No, the state plumbing code only allows piping in table 702.3.
That, if that was,
Besides-
if that was a true statement, why would they give me permits? They're speaking out of two sides of their mouth here. They want my money, but they don't approve my liner.
Has the city approved use of LMK previously?
No, we were unaware of the LMK until this Oakwood project.
Okay, which is not a true statement. I put LMK in. I'm sorry.
But it has not been approved.
There has never been an issue with LMK in the past, ever.
But what we really need is a state approval specifically for LMK is what we're looking for. Is that a long process to do? You sound like they're well aware of it in the state, so wouldn't that be fairly quick for them to confirm?
Let's back up to the table if we can. If lining is not in that table, why would all of the communities in the state of Michigan be allowing it? Why would Ann Arbor allow it? The table is it's not relevant to what we're talking about. It's grabbed out of the air, out of the code book. What you're grabbing here is not relevant to the scenario. We can go to the restoration code, we can go to the building code, and we can talk about restoring a sewer and doing it properly and using a approved process that the plumbing code allows. So if any liner that was installed that's not on that table, there would be thousands of sewers that have to be dug up. And that's what they're asking you currently right now to do, is to go any liner that's not permaliner or an approved process to go excavate them. There is no lining material right now in Oregon, there is a process going to that they're trying to put it into the code because the technology is ahead of the code. I taught classes to plumbing inspectors about lining years ago at the state.
To me, this is a code interpretation that the Building Board of Appeals should not be getting into. Is this correct, or am I out in left field?
Have you seen the letter from the state?
If I might. So the hearing here, if that's okay.
Yes.
So Glenn Dempsey, building official. So if I might state that he has this right to ask for the appeal of our interpretation of the code. If you approve it, I think you're going against the Public Act because it says it can't be so reoccurrent in nature. But if you disapprove it, he then has the right to take it to the State of Michigan Construction Board of Appeals. Further, just to make a comment, if I may, a statement was said, I've required him to dig everything up, and that's not a correct statement. We're here on this particular address. He should not be able to appeal it to all the addresses because you can't set a precedent per Public Act. But if you disapprove it, there is another way that he can go about it to see if the state will approve it.
If I could just say it a
Yes.
different way. Glenn has made an interpretation. He has appealed that interpretation. Therefore, it is now for the board to either confirm Glenn's interpretation or grant, or reverse it. Is that correct?
All right, I stand corrected.
Okay.
Yes, I understand that.
I think the earlier question is an interesting one, which is, what would, the PermaShield, is that the name of it? Permaliner? Permaliner has gone through a formal approval process at the state and effectively been added to the code.
It went through that formal process. They approved the product, and then they list what's required
Right.
to
So
make this
how long
product.
does it take to go through that how long does it take typically to go through that process?
It could be a lengthy time frame. The time frame, I'm not sure, because the state's been going through
Yeah,
changes.
I mean, there has to be a process like that, because there's always new products that come in between code updates.
Yes.
And then what they get is they submit all their information to the state, they go through a process, and then it gets added to a list of approved things separately from the code book itself.
And we have those products. We have lists of products that
Yeah,
are approved through the state.
Now, if he did that and it were approved, would that apply retroactively, so, or is that going forward?
Well, I think that would be a discussion that I would have probably with the state and along with the attorney here. But he would have that right. If you deny it, he has the right to then present it to them. And it'd be up to them whether they would accept it or have him go through the same process that I've suggested.
And in this case, was a permit requested after the fact? Is that what I'm understanding here? So this was installed,
This particular case, yes.
this was installed, okay.
I'm going to submit, if you don't mind, a letter from the state, just to show you that I didn't realize that I needed to come to a construction board of appeals locally, and I went to the state first because of my dispute of interpretation of the code. So I want to go back to the table that was quoted and ask, is Permaliner on that table?
So,
Do you,
No,
Make copies.
Permaliner
Copy?
is not on the
do
table.
you have
but-
additional copies of that?
No, I
Staff?
just thought there was 5 members going to be here, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
so to answer the question, if I may, for this gentleman, the table represents the standard products that are used. His product is not on that, although there is that vehicle taking you through the state, and we would accept it if the state approved it. So, here's your answer.
So with that, my state approval is through the state plumbing code book under the reference of the NSF 14.
So your standards, NSF 14, approved by NSF 14, your standards, it meets a standard. It doesn't say it's allowed to be used for sewer pipe. The sewer pipe allowance is in that table, or as a special product that's not in the table, goes through the state of Michigan and gets a letter of acceptability, because it's not in the table. If this wasn't needed, then the state would have already they would have sent these people away before, but they approved the product Permaliner, which incidentally, not to confuse anything, is a sister product of a parent company that owns both products. One product's been approved, the other one hasn't, but they're different characteristics of materials, they're not the same thing. So,
He keeps stating that it hasn't been approved, and it is approved by the code, by the reference standard. Anything that falls into that reference standard. And if you look up the NSF 14 standard and read that, it's used for lining. And it gives you tables and formulas in the STM standard that are very lengthy and detailed. And LMK is one of the premier lining companies in the country.
Is LMK listed in the state code or whatever as an acceptable product?
Under the reference of the code, yes. Under 303.3 and under 303.4, they are a third-party certified NSF 14, and they are a reputable certification agency. The debate should be here, is NSF a reputable certification agency? And I don't think that's the debate.
Is this a situation where all approved drain piping is NSF approved, but not all NSF approved things are
There's a reason we have a national, we have the IBC, and we don't just have the IBC applied to everybody.
Yeah, it's a
There's different-
standard.
Right, but there's different local conditions, there's different soil conditions, there's different seismic conditions, there's just different legacies in various places, and so you make you make adjustments basically locally. And so you can have a national standard, and that gives you a good guide that this is likely good, but it doesn't say automatically that this is the right product in this particular situation.
And I think if I'm looking at it right, if it's NSF approved, there's a much better chance of it being accepted by the state than if it's not. But just NSF approval in and of itself does not automatically guarantee that it will be approved by the state, and until the state approves it, it's outside the scope of what's acceptable.
While the state may approve it,
It hasn't.
they may not approve it too. It has to go through that arena.
Under 303.3 of the code and 303.4, it's approved. And that's been verified with Joe Matizier, or however you pronounce his last name, of the State Plumbing Board, the State Plumbing Inspector.
But per your letter, it appears that the state has talked with the city of Ann Arbor, and they still have not said in agreement with your interpretation that that's fitting, that they seem to suggest that they want to go through the more detailed approval process for the LMK product.
No, what happened was, I didn't realize that I needed to come locally, and I went directly to the state. That's all that's saying. So they didn't even hear the case. They said in the code, there's a code to go locally first, and if you don't like what you hear, then act accordingly that way. So this is, I will act accordingly. That's why I'm here.
That's the process. If he does get rejected here, not approved, then he has the right to go to the state.
If the state approved it, would that be an approval for just this situation? Would that effectively take an approval for the state? What would that mean?
So if the state approves this, if you reject this appeal and the state approves this product, they create a letter of acceptability of the product, and across the state of Michigan, that product is approved then to be used
Okay.
throughout for this type of system. And they also list the conditions that it can be used. And it's similar to what you see in the Permaliner, which has a different characteristic makeup, but it's a similar, they call it cured in place pipe.
Yeah.
We're talking two different things, though. We're not talking, right now, we're not talking state approval of LMK's product. Having a state approval, they do not have a specific, it has not been applied for with the state of Michigan. It's never been necessary until now. It is approved by the state plumbing code, by the way the code is written. This is an argument of dispute on how the code's interpreted. So if that table was used, every lining process that's been put in residentially would have to be excavated and removed.
There is 7 approved liners within the state of Michigan that have product approvals.
Can I see those?
They're in the packet, right, that he has?
Oh, all 7 are in there.
We have a couple samples in there, but there is a list of approved products.
List of approved products.
Yeah.
There's 1.
Okay, this is mine, you realize that.
For the, so this was the one demonstrating the process. Yeah, so this is actually for water service piping, I believe. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Is there 3 more?
I don't have them in front of me. I don't have,
So So we have 3 listed right now.
This is also one that Ruder MD got the approval through. And back when that was approved, you were the lead installer in the state.
Yep, so we would be absolutely comfortable if you used any of these approved products.
Why haven't you gone through that state approval process with LMK?
If you study the information that I gave you, you'll see a very detailed layout by the American Society of Testing Materials on issues with depth, issues with soil, and LMK is a premier lining product. So.
But is it
never-
approved by the state?
It is approved by the state. It's approved. I can use it in any state building, and I verified that.
Can you use it in a private residence?
Yes. I have conversations, and I can send you.
Does the state say that
I
you
can
could
give
do
you,
that?
documentation from an expert witness that allowed me to put it in Royal Oak. And before I did it, because of this problem, I asked if there was going to be an issue, and I can give you copies of that communication. Would you like that?
Well,
It should have been submitted previously.
I have another
Go ahead.
question. So if there are 3 products that are okay, and you're familiar with all of them, or you use all of them, or they fall under products that you've used already, why don't you just use them? I hate to ask the obvious question.
Because what I am using is superior to all of them. And it is actually more conducive to line Orangeburg sewers with. And I don't need to break out any floors, I don't need to cut any pipes. I can just roll up to a clean out and install this liner. And it's heavier, it has better ratings and approvals than any other product that's been submitted. That I have no doubt, and I'm confident that it will be approved, and they are going to apply for an approval, but this has never been an issue in 15 years, not with any community. And I do have an email with Royal Oak before I install the liner. So I'll give you a copy of that.
So just one other quick question from the city side. So a permit was pulled. What is the status of things right now, constructionally?
As far as,
Was a liner installed, and
Is it being
that's
used?
what brought everybody here? Or was a product suggested and it was rejected, and so the pipe has not been fixed? Or like, where do things stand?
this product was installed prior to permit.
Correct.
Permit was obtained. We became aware of the
Okay.
LMK product. We brought it up with the contractor, and here we are now.
Okay.
Is it it has been installed, is that sewer pipe being used?
Yes.
And the permit indicated that this is an LMK product?
No.
It did not.
Did the permit say that they were using another product, Permaliner?
No.
This is another plumbing inspector that would be an expert witness that if I need to, I can use.
This should probably have been submitted to the city for the process, for the application, rather than handing things out now.
These are things that happened since I filed, I'm sorry.
Well, the letter from the state was dated April 22nd, so it could have been submitted between April 23rd and now.
If I might comment on that letter, I've already addressed that issue, and we're fine tuning a few things. That's why Mr. Wood was asking whether this was a construction board of appeals or a building board of appeals. The intention is it is construction, even though we may be known as a building board of appeals, it is a construction board of appeals. And I've had this discussion with the department already, State of Michigan Department of Bureau and Licensing.
So I'm not asking for a variance on Oakwood. I'm asking for code interpretation.
But you did mention LMK is going to apply to the state for approval?
Yes. They would have been here, but I thought I'd let them go to the state, because I figured that would be a better avenue.
If I might mention, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment and reading your codes and standards at the very back on the recurrent approval of a process, of a code.
Okay, we've talked for nearly an hour here. Have we only gone through item number 1 of 4?
That is correct.
Do we want to do these separately?
Do we have to
One at a time?
do 1, 2, 3, and 4, vote on those, or vote on,
If we vote on number 1, would it possibly address a few of the others? As you mentioned, that if the state approves LMK, they also come with a list of requirements for install, testing, whatever?
That is correct. They'll give the conditions of the approval. If you would like, I can go on with number 2, and you can come back and go through your approvals. I'll leave that up to you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
any idea, you want to go through the other 3 items right now?
What are the other 3 items? Get the 1-minute summary?
A 1-minute summary, number 2 is Mr. Wood, MD Reuter, is asking that this be considered work exempt from having to obtain a permit. And number 3, he's asking that the pressure testing of the product, which is a code requirement, if he was in that table, if he's got an acceptability by the state, it's whatever they put on the condition. So I couldn't rule on that unless he gets the acceptability approval. So that's 3, he's asking for exemption from testing of the product, pressure testing. And number 4, I believe that's out of my area of jurisdiction. I don't believe it's in the scope of your appeal process, and that's because it's another area that approves or denies the road right-of-way permit. So I don't have a ruling on that. I don't stop it. I don't issue those permits, but I do need them in place in order to approve my product, and that's similar to any other construction permit approval. So I would need MDOT's approval to issue my permit and so forth. So that is out of my jurisdiction, the exemption from working, or for an annual permit or working without a permit in the road right-of-way. That's the
Okay,
quick summary.
all right, thank you. Do you want to give a quick summary of items 2, 3, and 4?
Item 2, I submitted in my paperwork a ruling that was in Florida, where a permit, there was a hearing for, is a permit required for this process? The Florida Board of Appeals ruled that it was not. This is a rehabilitation process. It's like a maintenance process. It improves the quality of a sewer from infiltration and exfiltration. And that I don't have a problem pulling a permit, but I believe that it's really not truly necessary.
In Florida. In Michigan, is it required?
Same code book.
In Michigan, you have to go by the Michigan Residential Code, the Michigan Plumbing Code, the Michigan Building Code.
And
Is
the
it
Michigan
approved?
Rehabilitation Code, which is accepted by Ann Arbor. So,
That a plumbing permit is not required? Is that what it says?
yes. Do you want me to read that to you?
I gave you a quick summary. I can go through it.
Yeah, let's just,
Yeah,
let's not
so
get to the.
I don't want
Okay.
to debate that. That's fine. Item 3, assuming that a permit is required, Reuter MD, not MD Reuter, Reuter MD Plumbing should not be forced to perform an impractical pressure test based on the following. The Michigan Plumbing Code states that 102.2 existing installations, plumbing systems lawfully in existence at the time of the adoption of this code shall be permitted to have their use and maintenance continued if the use, maintenance, or repair is in accordance with original design and no hazard to life, health, or property is created by such plumbing system. 107.4, in testing new and altered, extended, or repaired systems. 107.31, new and altered, extended, or required systems, new plumbing systems, and parts of existing systems that have been altered, extended, or repaired shall be tested as prescribed herein to disclose leaks and defects, except that testing is not required in the following case. In any case that does not include addition to replacement, alteration, or relocation of any water supply, drainage, or vent pipe. In any case where plumbing equipment is set up temporarily for exposition purposes. The Michigan Plumbing Code, Section 408.30791, incorporates Section 125.150443 of the State Plumbing Act. The state that the code shall be designed to permit to the fullest extent feasible the use of modern technical methods, devices, and improvements, including pre-manufactured units consisting with reasonable requirements for the health, safety, and welfare of occupants and the users of the buildings and the structures. It is to eliminate restrictive, obsolete, conflicting, or unnecessary construction regulations that tend to increase construction costs unnecessarily or restrict the use of new materials, products, or methods of construction, or provided preferential treatment to types of classes of materials or products of methods of construction.
I have a quick question on pressure tests. How do they actually do them? What's the process?
Go ahead, Rick.
There's many different ways to do it. The easiest way to do it in this situation would be to run a test ball from inside the building down through the new pipe. You blow up the test ball, then you would put a 10-foot head of water or 5 pounds of air on the system.
And you see if it holds? doesn't
Correct,
leak.
for 15 minutes. And that's spelled out in the residential plumbing code.
Okay.
And then on other installations, if it's an open dig, you can excavate the one in, put a cap on it, test from there.
I'll give you my bias on testing. And this is, look at a lot of houses that have settlement problems, and pretty much 100% of the settlement problems is caused by water eroding underneath. And a fair number of the time, the source of that water is leaky sewer pipes. And so I would say, test them all the time. Because I see some of the result of the problems, and they can get pretty ugly in a hurry. If your foundation is settled, it's a real expensive fix to pick it back up again.
So if I might add, plumbing codes ask for the testing,
Yeah.
and it gives you some options there for the testing. This product is not been approved by the state, and if they approve it, they will indicate what is
Right.
required for that.
For that, yeah.
That product.
I'm just saying, my bias would be test, yeah.
Well, in
And
the,
presently, the offer is to give a videotape camera shot of the sewer pipe, and that's it?
We do that as well. So in an instance like this, we'd want to test, and after the test, then we want to do the video
You
inspection.
can get situations where you can get small holes that
Oh, yeah.
you can't, you miss on the video camera.
Yeah.
That'll pick up big blockages, but not little smaller holes.
So you install this product in how long, what length of pipe?
It can be
No,
installed,
in this particular case, what was it?
I believe it was about 90 feet.
90 feet. No, it's, I did a little, I got page 3 of frequently asked questions from LMK, and at the bottom it says, is the lateral liner root resistance? Yes, the lateral liner is a new pipe within a pipe, so there are no joints, cracks, crevices. And then the next thing it says, it's extrapolated to have an engineered life of 50 years. So it sounds to me like it's a new pipe. If it were a new pipe, we'd insist it was leak tested. Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
And if it were a new pipe, a permit would be required, and the pipe would have to comply with all of the codes.
That's correct.
Okay, board have any other comments, questions for the applicant or the staff?
How do we, we can have it tested in compliance with the code to verify that it's working now, but how do we know preferred products or registered or listed products are going to have an expected life that will protect both the public and the homeowner? And without this, how do we know what we're approving? How do we know what's the homeowner's recourse if it doesn't last as long as a standard pipe might? Or is-
We're not going to be approving the product. We have been asked to mediate, give an interpretation of the code.
Indirectly, if we if we say the permit should be issued, then we have in effect approved the product, have we not?
No,
No,
No, we haven't?
no,
At least for this instance, we have, haven't we?
maybe.
Maybe, okay. So this isn't precedential in any way?
No.
Okay.
we already have a permit in place. There is a permit in place, just a non-approved product,
Okay.
Yeah.
in our eyes.
we've been asked to approve or disapprove of his request on the city's interpretation of the code
Yes.
requirement. We have to give a motion in the affirmative. And then we vote on that
Sure,
affirmative.
okay.
An affirmative to either accept, to agree with the city's motion or disagree with. Is the affirmative to agree with the city's interpretation?
Not
No,
necessarily.
the affirmative would be to agree with Mr. Wood's
Okay.
request to use that product.
And again, not just for this particular permit.
That's
It is for this particular one.
only for this particular one, but you have to remember the Public Act, which is under the standards and procedures for that Public Act. The appeal or the approval should not be so reoccurrent to make it a precedent. And these are pretty common things that are out there right now.
I'm ready. You're ready for a motion? Any other questions or comments before Bob gets going here? Okay, thank you, Bob.
Okay, so just remember that it was the first shot. And I'm going to try to cover all 4 points on this. So I move that in the matter of BBA 17-002 at 3186 Oakwood, 3186 Oakwood Street, I motion that the permitted and installed lining system be allowed for 3186 Oakwood, and that it be subjected to a pressure test to determine functionality, and that this condition shall be neither so general nor recurrent in nature as to make an amendment of the code with respect to the condition reasonably practical or desirable, and that further, future lining systems shall have and that further to the variance, future lining systems shall have a state certificate of acceptability and be subject to permitting, and that determination of issuance of annual permits is beyond the jurisdiction of this Construction Board of Appeals. Silence.
Okay, any comments or questions on the motion?
You need to get a second on the motion.
I
Second.
the motion.
Motion and a second has been,
Am I allowed to comment?
not at this point. No other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So this has been, the motion has been denied 2 to 3 of the five, with the 5 members of the board. So your request has been denied.
Okay, thank you for your time.
You know what you need to do then, Frank.
I do. I know exactly what I need to do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, all 4. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is old business. Anybody need to bring up old business? Any new business? Any reports or communications? I have no reports, communications. I'd like to go back to old business for just a few minutes. What has happened to things that were, to items of the show cause hearings that were held in January, February?
I think we would have to provide you, well, I'm sort of answering for Glenn, but I think we would have to provide you with specifics as to each address.
Okay.
So I don't know that we're prepared to answer that specifically right now.
Okay.
I'm sure we can answer it. Although I can say that I'm pretty sure with some of them, situations that we've referred to as hoarding, we are pursuing those in a different fashion,
Okay,
if that helps.
yes,
Okay.
that's fine. Very good, thank you. Anybody have a motion for adjournment? We have nothing else to discuss at this point.
I move we adjourn.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.